Hello, Austin here, aka Only Ruin. How are you? I get a lot of questions about setting up CV tools. I get a lot of questions about connectivity in general and working with hardware and working with Eurorack and Hardware Sense and using everything in Ableton and using a lot of gear and making it speak together nicely. So I decided to make a few videos to show you how to do that. Because honestly, I got the ES-9 like last year, and I didn't find really any of the resources for it to be very good. And a lot of that's probably because I had no idea what I was doing. So I decided I'd make some videos for fellow dummies. And it's okay if you're a dummy, you don't have to admit it. And try and make this easy for you. So let's just do it. Let's get in there. First thing I'm going to do is show you how to make an aggregate device. Well, actually, first I should probably point out I'm making some assumptions here if you're watching this video. One is that you have an ES-9 or an ES-8, because essentially this process is all exactly the same. There's just more inputs on the ES-9. Two is that you're using Ableton. And if you're not, then get out. I don't want to speak to you. And three is that you have a Mac. Because if you're working on PC, then I really can't help you. Just like write some code or hack it. Whatever you guys do. So all this stuff is going to be specific to those three things, and really live and a Mac and ES9, all of equal importance. So anyway, I'm going to show you how to set up a aggregate device right now. This is just like a standard thing in a Mac. It's easy to do. Go to your Spotlight, search audio MIDI setup. This is somewhere in your Mac. I don't even really know. It's in preferences or something. Anyway, this menu will pop up, and over here on the left are going to be all of your audio devices. And like your browsers and Ableton and anything that makes sound is going to be over here on the left. I use Loopback, so there's a bunch of Loopback devices that I've made over here too. But here is going to be the list of everything that's available to combine. So I use the Aurora links for all of my mic pre's and my Hardware Sense and my patch bay and all that. That's all in there. So the first 16 ins and outs of my aggregate device, which I have named here links ES9, are the links. And then the second 16, here you have the ES9. So you'll see that there are 16 ins and 16 outs, where there are only 8 physical outs on the ES9, and there's only 14 physical ins. Those are all things that you can change in configuration, not the physical thing, but you know, the routing of these additional ins and outs are things that can be changed in the ES9 configuration tool, which I will get into in another video when we start talking about sending CV into Ableton. But for now, I'm not going to deal with it, and don't worry about it. One thing I will say is that if you turn your Eurorack off, the ES9 will disappear from this menu, and sometimes you turn it back on and it's there again. It's smart. It figured it out. Sometimes it's not, and you got to go back in here and click it again. And if that happens, then you probably have to set up the I/O again in live. So just be aware of that. And then let's go over to live. So here's live. Here's our friend. Let's look at the I/O. And here, this is the old name I had for it. I haven't refreshed it yet, because I've made this video like 5 times. It's just not really working out for me. Here's to this one working. Okay, so we're setting up the I/O. That's what we're doing. So you look at this, and this is going to be all the 16. For mine, it's the 16 ends of the links, and then the 16 ends for the ES9. And it's important to remember which order you have it in, because the outputs where you are going to send CV, you want to know that those are the right ones, because if you start sending CV in places where CV isn't supposed to go, it's going to damage things. Most like anything that's like decent quality is going to have DC blockers on it. So I wouldn't like actually worry about it that much, but still be careful. I mean, you'll hear it. Like if you're wearing headphones and you accidentally send gate to an audio channel, you'll hear clicking and popping, and it's probably not good for anybody, but just be aware of it. So outputs, everything is selected. I didn't say back at the inputs, I have the 1718 as a stereo pair on my ES-9 just for like a stereo chain that I typically have set up in my Eurorack. So that's 17 and 18 are channels 1 and 2 on the ES-9 physically. So just keep that in mind. It will show up again when I show you how to do this. So let's move over to doing this. Let's figure it out. Let's get it done. So what we're going to do first is we're going to open a couple tracks here, and I'm going to be cool and do the shortcut Shift Command T, have a MIDI track. And let's do it the old way. Let's go to create and have an audio track. And for now, we're going to leave the audio track just alone. We're not going to deal with that yet, and I will tell you why. For MIDI, let's go over to packs over here on the left in Finder, and then CV Tools. It's right here. CV Tools is free. It's download. It's get it on the Ableton website. If you don't have it, I don't know why you're watching this video. Stop and go get CV Tools, and then hit me up. I'll show you how to use it. So now we're going to go to CV Instruments and the CV instrument and open it on this MIDI channel. There we go. There it is. So the reason I tell you not to, well, first of all, you see there's three modules here. You got CV gate, CV pitch, and then audio from. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the volume all the way down on here. And the reason for that, and the reason I tell you not to set your audio channel up yet, is because you're just going to patch an oscillator straight into it. So it's going to be loud because modular signals are hot if you haven't figured that out yet. So what we're going to do here is external in. And like I said before, I know the first 16 channels here are my my links. So 17 to 30 really are the physical inputs on the ES-9, because the last two, 31 and 32, are digital ones that I haven't reassigned. So 17 and 18, like I showed you earlier, are a pair. So I'm going to go to the third one, which is 19. It's just going to be the third input physically on the ES-9. And we're going to patch that over to the sine wave of the DPO. So there we go. There's the DPO. And I will say a couple notes here on oscillators that you use for this. Typically digital tracks better than analog using CV Tools. And I'll show you the calibration process in just a second. The DPO tracks really well. Anything digital is going to track really well as long as it gets up to pitch. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about right now. So we'll select CV pitch, external out, and we're going to go to 25. So a quick note here when I was talking about sending CV in the wrong place. A good way, if you have the ES-9 set up as the second device in your aggregate device, or you only have the ES-9, you're not using another interface, it's probably going to be the last 8 outputs available. And a good way to check that is to open another MIDI track here, and I'll show you quickly one of the other CV Tools devices over in CV Utilities. Go to the clock out, which is just a really useful and simple device that sends clock external out, and just pick the last one. And my session's already playing because I'm recording my microphone. Hello. But yeah, if you go back over to see my Eurorack, you see that red flashing, that's the clock. Red is positive voltage on the ES-9. You can see it's purple up here where the oscillator is coming in. Purple is audio, and blue is negative voltages. So there you go. Now I know that 32 is the last one. Count back to 8 is 25. So I know 25 is the first physical output on my ES-9. I can count. All right, so we're just going to delete this for now. I'm not going to deal with clock. But the clock is super useful. I have it in my like basic template. Every time I open a session, I use it all the time. All right. So back over to CV Tool. So now that we have these set up, I have 25, which is the first output. We're going to go to Calibrate. Go to Next. And it's just going to tell you all the things that I just told you. And now we get to the tuner. This is where I was saying there are some, the only oscillators I've ever used that don't work with CB tools don't work for this reason. They don't get up to C3, which is where you got to be in order to start the calibration process. Oop. Here we go. So the only oscillator that I am like fully know does not work with this is the Erica Sense VCO2, which is an amazing voice and I highly recommend, but it won't work for this. So I'll turn up the volume a bit just so you can hear what's happening. So just a sine wave. And also it'll tell you back in here that for the calibration process, if you have an oscillator that has multiple waveforms, I would recommend using a sine wave or something that's simple, because with complex waveforms, there's too much deviation and it doesn't really register. So it can slow down or even disrupt the calibration process. And I'll show you how it works right now. Turn it up a bit. We're going to hit next and then we're going to start the process. Oh, I sent it to the wrong place. Oh, I didn't patch. I forgot about that part. Yeah, that's the whole thing, right? So back over at the Eurorack, 25. It's the first output. And then we're going to patch to the Volper octave. All right, now this will work. So there you go. It's just testing the range of the usable range of the oscillator, and you'll see it's waiting for it to stop shifting about there. Getting really down low, way down there. Very nice. And you'll see the usable range of the DPO right about here, which is very, very a lot. It's like the whole thing. You got the whole thing. The only thing I've ever used that tracks better than the DPO is actually the Mutable Instruments Blades, which is a filter, but it works very well. So get that. Get the DPO. Get everything. It's Eurorack. You can have it. So now we're done with that bit. Can turn this off. And oh wait, I didn't demonstrate. Let's turn it up a bit. So we have pitch now. I'll go over to my push and play some notes. So we have pitch. There you go. Everything is pitched, which is not super useful yet. We need an envelope and we need a VCA. So I'm still going to tell you to wait to set up the audio. This is just how I would do it. And we're going to go over to Eurorack and I'm going to patch into a VCA. So I'm going to unpatch the oscillator itself. Get a smaller cable. Patch that same sine wave into this Dofer VCA. And then we're going to patch that VCA back to where we had it patched before. Okay, at this point now, I set up the audio track. I know that that's at 19, like I said before. And just turn on monitoring and record. Turn it up a bit. And there it is. We hear it. So now this next step, there's a couple ways to do this. CV Instruments has a built-in ADSR envelope. It's great. I use it all the time. I probably use it more than I would patch a envelope generator in my Eurorack. Just depends on what you want to do. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'll show you how to do it both ways. But first, let's look at the envelope generator within CV Tools. If you go down to see the instrument device here, and this little triangle next to CV pitch, it's going to open up this bit. So there's a few things here. There's two envelopes. There's the shaper, expression, mapping. Well, I'll show you all that stuff in other videos, but for now I'm just going to get into the envelope. And this works similarly to the way you sent pitch. I like to group them next to each other, so I sent pitch to output 25. I'm going to send the envelope to output 26, which is going to be physical output number 2 on the ES-9 right here. And now we're going to patch that from number 2 over to the CV in on the VCA and turn it up a bit, and then we'll play it. There you go. So now we have a nice envelope, and you know, you can adjust. There's some all the things. This ADSR. Really got that range there. So yeah, and the other thing I like to note here is that this behaves like any Ableton live device, Max for Live device. So if you have some kind of device you like to use to randomize parameters, like you can go ahead and randomize the ADSR and get some weird envelope movement happening and do all that fun stuff. It also behaves just like a MIDI instrument, so you can, you know, go over here and write in whatever like random notes that you want to play. So yeah, that works. The other way to do this is, instead of patching the ADSR out to wherever, we'll just get rid of that output and patch the CV gate, was the first little module here. I'll send it to 26 as well, to the same place, and back over here in the Eurorack, instead of sending that to the CV for the VCA, I'll trigger an envelope here in maths. Just channel 1 of maths going over to the VCA, and now it's going to do one of its weird little maths envelopes. But essentially the same. I mean, it's the difference between whether you want to use the CV Instruments ADSR, which is nice and it's snappy enough, but if you have ADSR stuff or any kind of envelope stuff that you like in your Eurorack, then by all means use that. Because again, you have it. I know you do. You have all the stuff. So yeah, that's really the basics of the CV instrument. And the CV instrument, I use it all the time. I did a little demo patch just like showing a bunch of different stuff that CV Tools does that I'll post as well. Some audio, sending audio and doing all that, and I'll get into that later. But I think the CV instrument, excuse me, is kind of the most like direct and like fun, immediate way of messing with this. So hope you enjoyed that. Let me know. Leave me a comment. Say hi. Leave me some recipes. You know, you got some good cookies you like? You got a tea recommendation? I'm way into it. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm going to put more of these videos up in the coming weeks. Please let me know if there's anything that you would like me to elaborate on. Yeah. Thank you.